My parents started planning what to do with the money before the will was even opened. My dad leaned forward and said quietly, "First thing, we sell the house." Like it was already his. My mom didn't argue. She just adjusted her bag on the table and nodded. We were sitting in a small office above a hardware store. 8 chairs, 1 long table, and somehow I was the only one there who still thought we were here to remember him, not to divide what he left behind. The lawyer didn't say anything at first. He just opened the files slowly, then he read the first line. My mother went completely still. My dad stood up so fast his chair slammed into the wall. And the lawyer looked straight at them and said, "Your father expected this reaction." Silence. No one moved. That's when I understood. This wasn't just a will. It was something he had been building long before he died. No one spoke after that. Not right away. The room stayed completely still, like everyone was waiting for someone else to react first. But no one did. The lawyer didn't repeat himself. He didn't explain. He just lowered his eyes back to the document and turned the page. Paper against paper. That soft, dry sound somehow felt louder than anything else in the room. I remember noticing small things. The way the ceiling fan above us made a faint clicking noise every few seconds. The way the sunlight came through the narrow window behind me and landed across the table, stopping just short of where my parents were sitting. And the way my dad didn't sit back down. He stayed standing, one hand still on the table, like he needed something solid to hold on to. "What does that mean?" he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't calm either. It had that edge I had heard my whole life, the one that came out when things didn't go his way. The lawyer looked up again. Calm, measured, like nothing about this moment surprised him. "It means," he said, "that your father anticipated your reaction and left specific instructions for how this should proceed." My mom finally moved. Just a small movement. She straightened in her chair, smoothing the sleeve of her blouse, like she always did when she was trying to regain control of a situation. "That doesn't make any sense," she said softly. Her tone was careful, controlled. The way she spoke when there were other people in the room, when appearances still mattered. "There must be some misunderstanding." The lawyer didn't respond to that. He simply reached into the folder and pulled out a second document. Thicker paper this time, folded once, neatly. Even from where I was sitting, I recognized the handwriting on the front. It hit me instantly. The same slightly uneven cursive I had seen on every birthday card since I was a child. My grandfather's handwriting. The lawyer placed the document on the table, but didn't open it yet. "This," he said, "is a personal letter." No one interrupted him this time. No one moved. He asked me to read this aloud only under certain circumstances. I felt something shift in my chest. Not fear, not exactly. Something closer to recognition, like a moment you don't fully understand yet, but you already know it matters. My dad let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but without any humor in it. "This is ridiculous," he said. He finally pulled his chair back and sat down again, but the movement was sharp, impatient. "You're telling me my father left everything to her?" He gestured toward me without actually looking at me, and now there's some kind of performance attached to it. There it was, that word. Performance. Like this was all some kind of inconvenience. Something unnecessary standing between him and what he believed was already his. The lawyer didn't react. "If you'd like to contest the will," he said calmly, "you're within your rights to do so." That made my dad pause. Just for a second. "But," the lawyer continued, "I would strongly recommend allowing me to finish reading the documents first." Silence again. Thicker this time. He wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. There was something about the way he spoke, steady, deliberate, that made it clear he wasn't someone you could push through. My mom placed her hand lightly on my dad's arm. A small gesture. But I recognized it. It was how she managed him, how she always had. "Let him finish," she said quietly. My dad didn't respond. But he didn't argue either. The lawyer gave a small nod, then unfolded the letter. The paper made a soft crack as it opened. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until that moment. He adjusted his glasses, glanced down at the first line, and began. I'm going to read this exactly as it was written. His voice didn't change, still calm, still even, but the room felt different now, tighter, like everything had narrowed down to just this one moment. He cleared his throat slightly, then read the first word. Greg, my dad's name, nothing else. No dear, no son, just his name. I saw my dad's jaw tighten. It was subtle, but it was there. If you're hearing this, the lawyer continued, it means you reacted exactly the way I expected you to. No one moved. No one made a sound. I felt my fingers press slightly into the edge of the chair. If you're angry, that tells me everything I needed to know. The words landed slowly, not dramatic, not loud, but heavy, like something settling into place. My mom shifted in her seat again. This time it wasn't controlled, it was smaller, uncertain. That's enough, she said suddenly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room. You don't need to read. I do, the lawyer said. He didn't raise his voice. But he didn't stop either. I was specifically instructed to continue, especially if you attempted to interrupt. That stopped her, completely. For the first time, she didn't have a response ready. The lawyer looked back down at the page, and kept reading. I spent years hoping you would come back. A pause. I spent even more years understanding that you wouldn't. I felt something tighten in my chest again, not for them. For him, because I remembered the waiting. The phone calls that never came. The way he would look at the door sometimes, like he expected it to open. The lawyer's voice stayed steady. You didn't lose me because I died, Greg. Another pause. You lost me long before that. My dad stared straight ahead. Not at the lawyer. Not at the letter. Just forward. Like if he didn't look directly at it, it wouldn't be real. My mom's hand was still on his arm. But now, her fingers were gripping slightly. Tighter than before, the lawyer turned the page, and for a second his eyes flicked up. Not at my parents, at me, just briefly. Then back down again. And as for Andrea, my name, everything in the room seemed to shift again, subtly, but enough. I felt it. That moment when attention changes direction. When something turns. And you know before anything is even said, that whatever comes next is going to matter. A lot. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there, hands still, heart steadying itself slowly. Because for the first time since walking into that room, I wasn't invisible anymore. And neither was the truth. No one expected the letter to go this far. Not this quickly. Not this directly. My dad was still staring straight ahead, but I could see it now, the shift, that moment when something inside someone starts to crack, even if they refuse to show it. This is unnecessary, he said, flat, controlled. But there was something under it now. Something tighter. The lawyer didn't respond. He didn't argue. He didn't even look up. He just kept reading. You stopped visiting long before you stopped calling. A pause. Then you stopped both. My mom shook her head immediately. That's not true. Too automatic. Like she didn't even need to think about it. The lawyer continued anyway. I kept track. That line changed everything. You could feel it. Like the air in the room shifted direction. My dad finally looked at him. What does that mean? He asked. And this time his voice wasn't steady. The lawyer reached into the folder again. Pulled out another document. This one wasn't folded. Printed, clean. Deliberate. A record, he said. That word landed harder than anything else so far. A record of visits, calls, and communication over the last 4 years. My stomach dropped. Not because I didn't know. But because I did. Because I had been there. Every week. Every single week. My dad leaned forward. Let me see that. He didn't ask. He reached. The lawyer didn't move the paper. These are for the record, he said calmly. I will read the relevant portions aloud. My dad pulled his hand back slowly. But the look on his face had changed. Now he needed to hear it, even if he didn't want to. The lawyer looked down at the page. March 2019, he read. April 2019. No visit. May 2019. No contact. Each line was simple, short, but they stacked, one after another. No emotion. No explanation. Just facts. My mom shifted in her chair. That doesn't prove anything, she said. People do that, they stop visiting sometimes. Work happens. Her voice was getting sharper, less controlled. The lawyer didn't stop. June 2020, he continued. Hospital admission. Pneumonia. I felt my chest tighten. I already knew where this was going. Visited by Andrea Townsend. Stayed 11 nights. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Contact attempted with Gregory Townsend. No response. My dad looked down at the table. Not at the paper, not at anyone, just down. No visit. My mom spoke again, quieter this time. He was busy. The words sounded weaker now. Like even she didn't fully believe them. The lawyer turned the page. Andrea Townsend weekly visits documented. He paused. Then added, consistent. That word stayed in the room longer than the others. Consistent. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just undeniable. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't the one trying to explain, trying to justify, trying to prove I mattered. The paper was doing that for me. December 2022. Christmas Day. Visited by Andrea Townsend. Stayed 10 hours. Another pause. No contact from Gregory or Diane Townsend. My mom looked away, not at the lawyer, not at my dad. Just away, like if she didn't see it, it wouldn't settle. My dad let out a breath. Long, slow. Then he leaned back in his chair. This doesn't change anything, he said. But his voice didn't match the words anymore. This doesn't change the will. The lawyer finally looked up. It doesn't need to, he said. And that was the moment. The exact moment everything shifted. Because this was never about changing the will. It was about explaining it. My dad understood that, you could see it, he just didn't want to accept it. This is biased, he said. This is one-sided. The lawyer replied. It's your father's record. No anger, no pressure, just truth. And somehow that made it worse. My mom sat up straighter again. Trying to recover, trying to find something solid. There are things you don't know, she said. There were reasons. That word again, reasons. The lawyer didn't ask what they were. He didn't challenge her. He simply said, you're welcome to present them in court if you choose to contest the will. And just like that, the room went quiet again. Because now it wasn't just emotional anymore. Now it was regal, final. My dad rubbed his face with one hand, slow, tired. Like this had suddenly become something heavier than he expected. What else is there? He asked. Not angry this time, not aggressive, just direct. The lawyer glanced down at the folder again. Then at the letter still resting on the table. There's more, he said. And the way he said it, calm, steady, certain, made something in my chest tighten again, because I knew, whatever came next, wasn't going to be easier. It was going to be worse. For them. And for the first time since walking into that room, I realized something I hadn't let myself think before. This wasn't just a moment, it wasn't just a reading. It was a reckoning, and it had been coming for a long time. The lawyer didn't rush, he never did. That was the part that made it harder to sit through. Because nothing was exaggerated, nothing was forced, it was just steady. And that meant every word had time to land. He adjusted the paper slightly, then continued reading. I want to be very clear about something. A pause. I did not make this decision suddenly. My dad's fingers tightened against the edge of the table. I made it slowly over years. The room felt smaller somehow, like the walls had moved in just enough to trap everything inside. I paid attention. That line hit differently. Not louder, not harsher, just precise. I paid attention to who showed up. My chest tightened slightly. I didn't move. I didn't react. But I felt it. Because I already knew what came next. I paid attention to who stayed. The lawyer didn't look up. He didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew exactly who those words were about. My mom shifted in her chair again, not defensive this time. Uncomfortable. There was a difference. I paid attention. The lawyer continued, to the quiet things. That word, quiet, stayed in the air for a second. Then he read the next line. The things people don't think matter but always do. No one interrupted. No one tried to stop him again. Because this wasn't something you could argue with. It wasn't an accusation, it was observation, and observation is harder to fight. I remember the first winter at Sunrise Meadows. The name alone made something in my chest tighten. I hadn't expected him to mention it. I remember how cold the room felt, a small pause. I remember the window that didn't close properly. My hands pressed lightly into my lap. I knew that window. I had sat beside it more times than I could count. I remember asking if it could be fixed. Another pause. No one came. My dad exhaled sharply through his nose. Not loud, but enough, like he was trying to push the words away before they settled. I remember's voice stayed steady. I cried every night. Silence. Not the same silence as before. This one felt heavier. More personal. Because now it wasn't about money. It wasn't about decisions. It was about something much simpler, something harder to ignore. I didn't cry because I was alone. A pause. I cried because I knew why I was. My mom looked down at the table. Her hand had stopped moving completely now. No adjustments, no control, just still. The lawyer turned the page. The sound was soft, but it carried. I remember the Sundays. That word hit immediately. Sundays. My breath slowed without me meaning it to. I remember the door opening. I closed my eyes for half a second, just enough to feel it. That moment, every single time. I remember you walking in, the lawyer read. And even though he was reading from the page, it didn't feel like his voice anymore. It felt like my grandfather's. I remember the way you tried to act like the drive wasn't long, a small pause. I knew it was. My throat tightened. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there letting the words land. I remember the books you brought. Another pause. You read to me when my eyes got tired. My dad shifted slightly in his chair. Not much, but enough to break the stillness for a second. I remember the cobbler. That almost broke me. Not loudly, not visibly, but something inside me pulled tight, like it didn't know whether to hold or let go. You always got the recipe right. A longer pause this time. Maggie would have liked that. The room stayed completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Because now there was nothing left to interrupt. No argument to make. No version of events to twist. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about him. And what he remember. The lawyer continued, that you never asked for anything. A beat. Not once. That line settled slowly. It didn't hit all at once. It just stayed there building weight. I remember that you didn't come for money. Another pause. You came because I was still here. My dad leaned back in his chair. Further than before. Like distance might help. Like space might make it less real. It didn't. Nothing about this moment could be softened now. The lawyer looked down at the last part of the page. Then continued. I need you to understand something, Greg. My dad's name again. Sharp, direct. I didn't make this decision to punish you. A pause. I made it because of who you chose to be. That line didn't land like anger. It landed like finality. Like something that had already been decided long before this room. My mom's voice came out suddenly. Quiet. Almost too quiet. That's not fair. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't sharp. It sounded small. For the first time. The lawyer didn't respond. He just kept reading. I waited for you. A pause. Longer than I should have. My dad's jaw tightened again. But he didn't speak. Not this time. I gave you chances you never asked for. Another pause, and excuses you didn't deserve. The air in the room felt heavier with every line. Like each sentence added something that couldn't be taken back. And when I stopped making excuses. A longer pause. I finally saw the truth. No one moved. No one breathed too loudly. Because this wasn't something you could interrupt anymore. It had already happened. It had already been decided. The lawyer lowered the page slightly, then continued. And the truth is this, he didn't rush the line. He let it sit, let it build. Family is not the people who wait for you to die. Silence. Complete. Total. And it is not the people who take what you built. A pause. And call it love. My mom closed her eyes. Just for a second. But it was enough. Because that was the first time she didn't try to control the moment. The first time she didn't try to manage how it looked. She just reacted. The lawyer turned the page again. Slowly. Deliberately. And for the first time since this started, I felt something shift completely. Not in them. In me. Because this wasn't just about what they had done anymore. It wasn't just about what he remembered. It was about what he had chosen. And why. And whatever came next. I knew one thing for certain. There was no coming back from it. This is enough. My dad's voice cut through the room before the lawyer could continue. Loud this time, not controlled. Not measured, sharp, final. You're not reading any more of that. The shift was instant. Everything that had been building quietly finally broke the surface. The lawyer didn't react right away. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply looked up, calm, steady, and completely unmoved. I am, he said, 2 words. Nothing more. But the way he said them made it clear this wasn't something that could be stopped. My dad pushed his chair back again, harder this time. It scraped loudly across the floor. I said, we're done here? You're not, the lawyer replied. Still calm. Still steady. But you can leave if you choose to. That landed. Because for the first time, this wasn't something my dad could control, not the room. Not the conversation. Not the outcome. My mom stood up slowly. More controlled than him. But I could see it now. The tension in her shoulders. The tightness in her hands. This is inappropriate, she said. Her voice had shifted again, colder, more precise. You're turning a legal matter into something personal. The lawyer didn't hesitate. It is personal, silence. And it was meant to be. That line hit harder than anything before. Because it wasn't just truth, it was intention. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't emotional. This was planned. My dad let out a short laugh, but there was nothing amused about it. So that's it, he said. You read a few lines and suddenly that justifies all of this. He gestured toward the papers. Toward me. But still didn't look at me. That justifies cutting your own son out. The lawyer didn't respond immediately. He let the question sit, then said quietly, no. My dad froze for a second, like he hadn't expected that answer. It doesn't justify it, the lawyer continued. It explains it. That landed differently. Not defensive, not emotional, just final. My mom stepped forward slightly. You're presenting this like fact, she said. But you're only showing one side. Her voice was stronger again. She was finding her footing. There are things he didn't understand. There are things he didn't see. The lawyer nodded once. Small. Acknowledging. Then asked, would you like me to read those parts as well? That stopped her, completely. Because now it wasn't just about defending themselves. It was about what might come next. What parts? My dad asked. Suspicious. Tight. The lawyer looked down at the letter again. Then back at them. The parts where he explains that he knew exactly what was happening. Heavy. Immediate. My dad's expression changed. Not anger. Not yet. Something else. Something closer to realization. That's not possible, my mom said quickly. Too quickly. He didn't. He did. The lawyer said. And for the first time. Not emotion. Not anger. But certainty. Absolute. He documented everything. My dad shook his head. No. But it didn't sound like denial anymore. It sounded like resistance. Like something he didn't want to accept. What do you mean documented? He asked. The lawyer reached into the folder again. Pulled out another set of papers. These weren't loose, they were clipped together. Organized. Deliberate. Records, he said. Notes. Dates. Conversations. My stomach tightened slightly. Because I knew what that meant. The lawyer added. Off everything. My mom took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. He wouldn't do that, she said. Her voice wasn't steady anymore. He wouldn't. He did, the lawyer repeated. Calm. Unshaken. And he left instructions for it to be shared if necessary. The room felt different now. Not just tense. Exposed. Like something had been pulled into the light that couldn't be pushed back. My dad ran a hand through his hair. Rough. Frustrated. This is insane, he said. You're telling me he sat there, writing things down like some kind of record. The lawyer didn't answer the tone. He answered the question. Yes, silence. Longer this time. Because now there was nothing left to interrupt, nothing left to dismiss. Only something to face. My mom looked at him, then at the papers, then away, like she couldn't decide where to focus. This doesn't change anything, my dad said again, but it didn't sound convincing anymore. This doesn't change the fact that he wasn't in his right mind. There it was. The shift, from denial to strategy. The lawyer nodded slightly. You're welcome to pursue that claim. Calm, measured. But you should know, he paused. Just enough. He anticipated that as well. My dad's head snapped up. What does that mean? The lawyer didn't look away this time. He arranged for independent evaluations. Silence. Another pause. Both certified his cognitive capacity at the time the will was signed. That was it. That was the moment everything collapsed forward, because now, there was no angle left, no easy argument, no simple way out. My dad didn't speak. Not immediately, he just stared at the table, like he was trying to find something there that wasn't slipping away. My mom said nothing. For the first time since this started. Nothing, and that silence said more than anything she could have argued. The lawyer placed the documents back into the folder, neatly, carefully, like he had done this before, like he knew exactly how this would go. Would you like me to continue? He asked. No one answered. Not right away, because continuing meant hearing more, and hearing more meant losing whatever was left to hold on to. My dad finally leaned back. Slow, defeated, but not willing to show it. Go ahead, he said, quiet, flat. And just like that, they stopped fighting it. Not because they accepted it, but because they had no way to stop it. The lawyer looked down at the letter again, turned the page, and continued. And this time, no one tried to interrupt. The lawyer didn't look up this time. He didn't pause. He didn't give them a chance to prepare. He just turned the page and continued. There are things I chose not to say out loud while I was alive. A quiet line. But it landed hard. Not because I didn't know them. A pause. But because I wanted to believe they weren't true. My dad's hand tightened again. Slowly. Like he already knew this part wouldn't be easy. Unchanged. I was wrong. Silence. I knew more than you thought I did. That line shifted something immediately. Not emotionally, strategically, because now, this wasn't just memory, this was awareness, and awareness meant intent. My mom spoke first, quick, sharp. To mean. The lawyer didn't answer her. He read. I knew about the house. Everything stopped. Not gradually, instantly. My dad didn't move. But something in his face did, a small flicker, gone almost as soon as it appeared, but it was there. I knew it had been sold. The room felt colder, like the air itself had changed. I knew you didn't tell me. My mom stepped forward slightly. That's not. The lawyer raised his hand, not aggressively. Just enough to stop her. I was instructed to read this without interruption. And then he kept going. I didn't find out from you. A pause. I found out from a neighbor who thought I already knew. That line didn't need emotion. It carried itself. My dad looked down again, not at the lawyer, not at the paper. Just down. My home, the lawyer read, was not just a property. Another pause. It was the last place your mother was alive. The weight of that settled differently, deeper. He planted those hydrangeas himself. My throat tightened slightly. I could see it. That front walk. That exact spot. I sat in that house for 48 years. Silence. Sold like it was nothing. My mom shook her head. No, she said. No. That's not what happened. Her voice wasn't controlled anymore. It was defensive. Sharp. There were reasons. The lawyer didn't stop. I know about the boat. That hit harder. Because it wasn't just accusation now, it was detail specific. Undeniable. My dad's head snapped up. That was the first real reaction. What? He said. The lawyer didn't look at him. I know what you spent the money on. A pause. And I know you never told me where it came from. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Heavy. Like something had just been exposed that couldn't be covered again. My mom looked at my dad. Not quickly, not dramatically, but long enough. Like she was trying to read something in his face, something she hadn't seen before. This is ridiculous, my dad said, but his voice didn't hold, not fully. This is twisting things. The lawyer turned another page, slow, precise. I know about the phone. That line landed in a completely different way. because it wasn't about money anymore. It was about something smaller. Something more personal. And somehow worse. My chest tightened instantly. I didn't want to hear this part, but I couldn't stop it either. I know the calls stopped. A pause. I know why they stopped. My mom froze. Completely. The kind of stillness that isn't controlled. It's caught. I asked why Andrea hadn't called my name again, and this time it didn't feel like recognition, it felt like something else. I was told she was too busy. The lawyer didn't rush the next line. I believed it. My breathing slowed without me meaning it to, because I remembered that exact moment. That quiet, empty feeling. I waited. A pause. Then I stopped asking. The room didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't shift, because now, this wasn't something you could argue. It wasn't interpretation, it wasn't opinion, it was something else entirely. Something real. I later learned the truth. My mom's voice came out suddenly, barely above a whisper. That's not. But she didn't finish. Because she couldn't. Because she already knew. The lawyer read the next line. Your mother blocked her number. Silence. Absolute. No movement, no sound. Just the weight of it. My hands stayed still in my lap. But inside something shifted, not anger, not shock. Something quieter, something clearer. Because for years I didn't know. I didn't understand why everything just stopped. Why calls didn't go through. Why distance felt one-sided. And now, I did. My dad looked at her. Finally, really looked. And this time there was no control in it, no management. No shared understanding. Just something raw. You did what? He said. My mom didn't answer, not immediately. She looked at the table. Then away, then back again. Like there was no version of this moment that worked anymore. I was trying to protect you, she said. The words came out weak, thin. Like even she didn't believe them fully. From what? My dad asked. And that question didn't sound angry. It sounded lost. The lawyer didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. Because now the room was doing the work for him. The truth wasn't just being read anymore. It was happening, right there. Between them. The lawyer looked down at the final lines on the page. Then read, I was not confused. A pause. I was not unaware. Another pause. I was paying attention the entire time. That line closed something, not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Because there was nothing left to question, nothing left to reinterpret. Everything that had been hidden was now in the open. And no one in that room could pretend otherwise anymore. No one spoke after that. Not my dad, not my mom. Even the room felt different now, quieter, but heavier. Because this wasn't just about what had happened anymore. It was about what couldn't be undone. The lawyer let the silence sit for a moment. Then he closed the letter carefully, deliberately, like that part was finished. But the story wasn't. There's one more thing, he said. Those 4 words changed everything again. My dad looked up immediately, not angry this time. Alert. What now? He asked. The lawyer didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the folder one last time and pulled out something different. Not paper. A small, black flash drive. He placed it on the table between them. No explanation, no build-up. Just there. The object itself felt heavier than anything that had been said so far. What is that? My mom asked. Her voice had lost its sharpness. Now it sounded uncertain. The lawyer folded his hands calmly. Your father asked me to arrange a recording. Silence. My dad frowned. A recording of what? The lawyer didn't hesitate. Of him. That landed slowly. Then all at once. He recorded a statement. The lawyer continued. 6 months before his passing. My chest tightened. I hadn't known about this. Not once. Not in all the Sundays I had been there. He speaks directly to the camera. The lawyer said, and explains his decisions in full. My dad shook his head immediately. No. But it didn't sound like denial anymore. It sounded like resistance. You can't use something like that, he said. That's not. It's completely admissible, the lawyer replied calmly. He identifies himself, states the date, and confirms his mental capacity on record. My mom looked at the flash drive again. Like it might change if she stared long enough. He knew you would challenge the will, the lawyer added. That line settled into the room like weight, heavy, final, So he made sure there would be no confusion. No one moved. No one argued. Because now this wasn't about interpretation. It wasn't about memory. It was evidence. My dad leaned forward slightly, slow, careful. He asked. The lawyer met his eyes. Everything? A pause. Names included. That was it. That was the moment. The exact second when the last piece of control slipped. My mom stepped back again. Just one step. But this time it wasn't hesitation. It was distance. Like she needed space from something she couldn't stop. This is insane, she said. But her voice didn't rise, it didn't push. It just existed. Flat. Thin. The lawyer didn't react. He reached into the folder again, pulled out one final document. This one thicker. Formal, printed on official paper. There is also a clause included in the will, he said. My dad didn't respond. He was watching the paper now, carefully. Like he already knew this part mattered. A no contest clause. The room didn't move. But the meaning did. If the will is challenged and the challenge fails, the lawyer continued, Orty party contesting forfeits all remaining claims. A pause. Including personal effects, heirlooms, and any secondary assets. My dad blinked once. Slow, like he was processing something that didn't fit. You're saying, he started, but didn't finish. The lawyer did it for him. I'm saying if you contest this and lose. He let the sentence hang for just a second. You walk away with nothing. Silence. Complete. Total. Not even the fan above us seemed to make noise anymore. Because now this wasn't emotional. This wasn't personal. This was consequence. Real. Immediate. Unavoidable. My dad leaned back in his chair. Slowly, not defeated. Not yet. But something had changed. Something deeper. He looked at the flash drive again. Then at the document. Then finally at me. For the first time. Really looked. Not past me. Not through me. At me. And there was something there I hadn't seen before. Not anger. Not control. Something closer to realization. My mom didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the table. Her hands were still. Completely still. As if movement itself might make this worse. This doesn't prove anything, she said quietly, but it didn't sound like belief. It sounded like habit. The lawyer didn't argue, he didn't need to. It proves enough, he said. Calm, measured, and if you choose to test that in court the outcome is very clear. No pressure. No threat. Just fact. Long, then ran a hand across his face. Tired. Not physically. Something else. Something heavier. He planned all of this, he said, more to himself than anyone else. The lawyer nodded once. A pause. He didn't just write a will. Another pause. He built a case. That line settled deeper than anything else, because it explained everything, the letter, the records, the timeline, the video. None of it was random. None of it was emotional. It was deliberate, careful, complete. My dad sat there staring at nothing. My mom didn't speak again. And for the first time since this started, there was no argument left, no interruption, no control, just the quiet understanding that whatever happened next, they were already out of options. No one spoke, not right away. The lawyer had already said everything that needed to be said. The documents were on the table. The flash drive sat between them. And for the first time since this started, there was nothing left to argue against. Only something to sit with. My dad didn't move at first. He stayed in his chair, staring at the table like if he didn't look up, none of this would fully settle. My mom stood a few feet away from him. Still. Too still. The kind of stillness that isn't control anymore, it's distance. From the moment. From the truth. From each other. This doesn't make sense. My dad's voice came out low, not sharp. Not angry, just strained. He wouldn't do all this. No one answered him. Not the lawyer, not me, not anyone else in the room, because the evidence was already there. And denying it out loud didn't change anything. He wouldn't go this far, my dad said again. But this time it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Not us. My mom finally turned toward him, slowly. Like she wasn't sure what she was going to say until she said it. You didn't tell him. Her voice was quiet. But it landed hard. My dad looked up at her. What? The house, she said. You didn't tell him you sold it. There was no accusation in her tone. No anger. Just fact. And somehow that made it worse. My dad blinked, once, then again. I handled it, he said, defensive now. You agreed with it. I agreed we needed the money, she replied. That's not the same thing. Silence. Not the heavy kind from before. This one felt sharper, more focused. Because now this wasn't about the will anymore. This was about them. What does that even mean? My dad asked. His voice had started to rise again. Not loud, but unstable. It means you made the decision, she said. And I backed you. A pause. But you never told him. The words hung there, clear. Undeniable. My dad stood up again, slower this time, like he didn't have the same energy behind it anymore. I didn't need to tell him, he said. It was my responsibility. It was his house, she replied. And that line shifted something completely. Because for the first time, she wasn't standing beside him. She was standing across from him. The room felt tighter again. Not because of the lawyer. Not because of the letter. But because something between them had started to break. My dad looked at her like he didn't recognize what she was doing. No, you want to say that? He asked. Now. Her jaw tightened slightly. I'm saying it because it matters now. It mattered then. Neither of them raised their voices. But the tension was louder than anything they could have said. The lawyer didn't interrupt. He didn't step in. He just sat there watching. Because this part wasn't his anymore. This part belonged to them. My dad ran a hand through his hair again. Frustrated. You were there? He said. You knew everything. I didn't know he didn't know, she replied. That stopped him. Completely. Just for a second. And in that second, you could see it, the gap. The misalignment. The realization that whatever story they had been telling themselves wasn't the same one. You never asked, my dad said. You never told me to tell him. Her expression didn't change. I didn't think I had to. Silence. Because that's where it always breaks, not in the big moments. In the small ones. The ones no one questions until it's too late. Across the table, someone shifted in their seat, a quiet movement, but it was enough to remind everyone they weren't alone. This wasn't private, this wasn't hidden. Every word, every crack, was being seen. My dad noticed it too. He glanced around the room, at the lawyer, at the others, at me. And something in his posture changed. Not pride, not control, something closer to awareness, like he suddenly understood how this looked from the outside, and how little of it he could fix. My mom sat down slowly. Her movements were careful again, but not controlled, measured, like she was choosing not to say more. Because there wasn't anything left that would help. This isn't over, my dad said. But his voice had lost its force. We can still fight this. The lawyer didn't respond. He didn't need to, because the answer had already been given. My dad looked back at my mom, waiting for agreement, for support, for something. She didn't give it. She just looked at the table, then quietly said, Not we. Not this time. Just you. That was the moment. The exact point where everything shifted completely. Not because of the will. Not because of the money. But because the one thing they had always had, alignment, was gone. And once that breaks, there's nothing left holding the rest together. No one spoke after that. Not for a long time. The room stayed quiet. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one felt different. Final, like something had already ended. Even if no one had said it out loud yet. And sitting there, watching it happen, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. This wasn't just about what my grandfather left behind. It was about what they had already lost. The room was still. Not tense anymore, not loud. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after everything important has already been said. The lawyer adjusted the papers in front of him. Neatly. Carefully. Like he was preparing to finish something not started. My dad didn't move. My mom didn't look up. And for the first time since this began, no one tried to interrupt. Let's continue, the lawyer said. His voice hadn't changed. Still calm. Still steady. But now there was something final in it. Like this part wasn't open for reaction, only for understanding. He turned to the next page. And began. Regarding the distribution of my estate. That was it. That one line pulled everything back into focus. Not the past. Not the arguments, the outcome. My dad leaned forward slightly, not with confidence this time. With something else. Tension. The kind you don't show but can't hide. My residential property, the lawyer read, located at Oak Hill Road. A pause. Will not be transferred to my son. Silence. Immediate. Sharp. No one reacted out loud, but the meaning landed. Hard. The lawyer continued without hesitation. It will remain under my name within a private trust. That shifted something, subtly, because now this wasn't just about loss, it was about control. Planned. Protected. Managed under the direction of my granddaughter, Andrea. My name, clear, direct, final. I didn't move, but I felt it, not as shock, not as surprise. Something quieter, heavier, like something settling into place. My dad let out a breath, slow, unsteady. That's not, he started, but didn't finish, because there was nothing left to interrupt, nothing left to argue. The lawyer didn't pause. He kept reading. All financial accounts. Another page. Another line. All remaining assets. A pause. Are to be transferred in full to Andrea Townsend. There it was. Not dramatic, not loud, just complete, everything. My mom's hand moved slightly on the table. Just once. Then stopped again. My dad leaned back, further than before, like distance might make it smaller. It didn't. This isn't fair, he said quietly, not angry, not loud, just hollow. And for the first time, it didn't sound like a protest, it sounded like realization. The lawyer didn't respond to that. He turned the page. There was one more section. I want to make something clear. The room didn't move. No one spoke. I did not make this decision to hurt anyone. A pause. I made it to honor what was real. That line settled differently, not sharp, not heavy, just true. I am leaving everything to the person who showed up. Silence. I am leaving everything to the person who stayed. Another pause. To the one who never treated my life like something to wait out. My chest tightened. Not painfully. Not overwhelming, just enough to feel it. Because this wasn't about winning, it wasn't about taking something from them, it was about being seen. Finally. Completely. The lawyer continued. Andrea. My name again, softer this time. Different. Do not carry guilt for this. That line hit deeper than anything before. Because it answered something I hadn't said out loud. Something I hadn't even fully understood yet. You are not taking anything from them. A pause. You are receiving something from me. The room stayed completely still. No reaction. No movement. Because there was nothing left to push against. Nothing left to deny, just something to accept. Use it well. A small pause. Build something with it. Another. Live your life fully without apology. The lawyer lowered the page slowly, then placed it flat on the table, carefully, like it mattered. Because it did. No one spoke, not my dad, not anyone, because the outcome wasn't unclear anymore. It wasn't open, it wasn't negotiable, it was finished. My dad stared at the table, not at the papers, not at the lawyer, just down. Like he was trying to find something that wasn't there anymore. My mom didn't move. She didn't adjust her sleeve. She didn't fix her posture. She just sat there. Still, and for the first time since I could remember, there was nothing left for her to control. I sat where I was, hands still, breathing steady. Not because I was unaffected, but because something inside me had already shifted. This wasn't about the money, not really. It never had been. It was about what he saw, and what he chose, and what that meant. The lawyer looked around the room once, not checking, not waiting, just acknowledging. Is there anything further? He asked. No one answered, because there wasn't. The flash drive was still on the table. The documents were still there. The truth was still sitting between all of us. But the question had already been answered. Everything had already been decided, and for the first time, no one tried to change it. No one moved for a few seconds after the lawyer finished. Not because they didn't understand, but because they did. Completely. There was nothing unclear about what had just happened. Nothing left open. Nothing left to interpret. My dad was the first to move, not suddenly, not aggressively, slow, like every movement had to be thought through now. He pushed his chair back, but this time it didn't scrape. It barely made a sound. He stood up, and just stood there. Not looking at the lawyer. Not looking at the papers, not even looking at my mom. Just standing, like he didn't know what to do next. My mom stayed seated. Her hands still resting on the table, fingers lightly pressed against the surface, like she needed something solid to hold on to. "This isn't over." My dad said it quietly, not like a threat, not like a plan, just something to fill the silence. The lawyer didn't respond, he didn't need to, because they both knew what came next, or more importantly, what didn't. "You can challenge it," the lawyer said calmly, not pushing, not encouraging, just stating it. "But you've already heard the conditions." My dad nodded once, small, barely noticeable, but it was there. He had heard them. He understood, and that changed everything, because now this wasn't about anger. It was about risk, real risk. My mom finally looked up, not at me, not at my dad, at the lawyer. "If we don't contest it," she asked quietly, "what happens?" Her voice had changed. It wasn't sharp anymore. It wasn't controlled. It sounded practical, like she had shifted from defense to calculation. The lawyer folded his hands together. "The estate transfers as written," he said, without delay. A pause. No further proceedings. My mom nodded slightly, processing. Then she looked at my dad, and for a moment, it felt like everything was being decided in that one glance. No words, no discussion, just understanding. My dad looked back at her, then away, then back again, and whatever they had always shared, that quiet agreement, that same direction, it wasn't there anymore. Not fully. Not like before. "We're not walking away from this," he said. But even as he said it, it didn't sound certain. My mom didn't agree, she didn't argue, she just said, "You heard what he said." A pause. "If we lose everything." That landed harder than anything else, because now it wasn't emotional, it wasn't about pride, it was about consequence. My dad exhaled slowly, long, like something inside him was finally catching up. "This was supposed to be simple," he said, almost to himself. "It was always simple," my mom replied. And that line, that quiet line, cut deeper than anything else she had said, because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't emotional, it was honest. Painfully honest. My dad didn't respond, he didn't have anything left to say. The fight had drained out of him, not all at once, but enough. Enough to make it clear, this wasn't something he could win. Across the room, someone shifted again. A chair creaked slightly. A small reminder that none of this was private, that every word, every pause, every crack, had been witnessed. My dad seemed to notice it again. He looked around the room, at the lawyer, at the others, then finally, at me. And this time, he didn't look away immediately, he held it. Just for a second, and there was something there I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not control, something closer to understanding, or maybe regret. It didn't last, but it was gone. My mom stood up slowly, smoother than before, more deliberate, like she had made a decision. "We're done here?" she said, not loudly, not sharply, just final. My dad didn't move at first, then after a second he nodded, once, and stepped back from the table. The papers stayed where they were. The flash drive stayed where it was. Neither of them reached for anything, because there was nothing left for them to take. They walked toward the door together, not side by side, not completely apart, but not aligned either. Something in between, something broken. My dad paused at the door, his hand on the handle. He didn't turn back immediately, but when he did, it wasn't toward the lawyer, it wasn't toward the table, it was toward me. "I hope you know what you're doing," he said, not angry, not bitter, just distant, like he didn't recognize the situation anymore, like he didn't recognize me in it. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one explaining. He held my gaze for a second longer, then nodded slightly, almost like an acknowledgement. Then he opened the door and walked. I followed, without looking back. The door closed quietly behind them. No slam, no noise. Just closed. And that was it. No final argument, no last attempt, no dramatic ending. Just a quiet exit. The kind that says everything without needing to say anything at all. The room felt different after they left, lighter. Not because something had been gained, but because something had ended. The lawyer gathered the papers slowly, stacking them neatly, returning everything to order. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice softer now, not formal, not distant, just human. I took a breath. A real one. The kind that fills your chest completely. "I don't know," I said. And it was the truth. Because this didn't feel like winning. It didn't feel like losing either. It felt like something else. Something quieter. Something heavier. Something that didn't need a name yet. The lawyer nodded, like he understood that, like he had seen it before. "They won't contest it," he said. "Not as a guess. As a fact." I looked at him. "Why?" He paused, then said, "Because your grandfather didn't leave them anything to fight with." A small silence settled after that, not uncomfortable, not heavy, just still. And for the first time since this began, there was nothing left to prove, nothing left to defend, nothing left to hold together, just the truth and what remained after it. The house was quiet when I walked in. Not empty, just still. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel uncomfortable. It settles around you, gives you space. The front door closed softly behind me, and for a moment, I just stood there, not moving, not thinking, just being in it. Oak Hill Road, his house, my house now. That part still didn't feel real, not fully. The hallway looked the same light coming through the window, the same worn edges along the floor. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. I stepped inside slowly, past the entryway, into the living room. The chair was still there. His chair, brown leather, slightly worn on one side. I had sat next to it so many times I could picture it even with my eyes closed. Now it felt different, not because it was gone, but because he was. I sat down across from it, hands resting lightly in my lap, breathing steady. And for the first time since the will reading, there was no noise around me, no tension, no voices, no need to react, just silence, and space to finally feel it. Not everything at once, just enough. I leaned back slightly and looked around the room. The bookshelf, the photographs, the small things most people wouldn't notice. But he had. He always had. That was the difference. He noticed. There was a soft creak from the porch outside the swing. I smiled slightly without meaning to. That sound hadn't changed either. It was still there. Like something steady. Something that didn't move with everything else. I stood up and walked toward the study. The door was open, the same way it always had been. Inside, the desk sat exactly where it always did. Nothing moved, nothing touched. Untouched in the best way. I stepped closer and ran my fingers lightly across the surface. Smooth, familiar, grounded. The drawer opened easily, and there it was, the notebook. The same one I had seen so many times before. Dark cover, worn edges. I picked it up slowly, carefully, like it mattered. Because it did. I sat down in the chair and opened it. The pages flipped easily. Dates, times, short notes, simple. Consistent, every Sunday. Every visit, every moment that most people would have forgotten. He didn't. He kept track, not for proof. Not for argument. Just because it meant something to him. I stopped on one of the pages. Sunday, 1:15 a.m. Andrea arrived, stayed until 40:30 dine. A small pause. Broke cobbler. I let out a slow breath, then turned another page. Sunday, snow outside. She still came. Another. Sunday. She fixed the TV remote. And another. Sunday, we sat out, talked about nothing important. That line stayed with me. Nothing important. And yet, everything important. I flipped to the last page. The handwriting was different there. Less steady, slightly uneven, but still clear. I don't deserve her. I swallowed slowly. Not because it hurt, but because it meant something. Something deeper than anything that had been said in that room. I closed the notebook gently, held it in my hands for a moment longer, then placed it back on the desk, right where it belonged. The house didn't feel heavy, it didn't feel overwhelming, it felt quiet, steady. Like something that had been waiting, not for money, not for ownership, for presence. I walked back toward the living room, then to the front door, and stepped outside. The air was cool, clean. The porch stretched out in front of me. The swing moved slightly with the breeze. I walked over and sat down. The wood creaked softly beneath me. The same sound, the same rhythm, nothing forced, nothing dramatic, just familiar. I leaned back slightly and looked out toward the yard. The hydrangeas were still there, blooming, even without attention, even without effort. They just kept going, like they always had. I took a slow breath, then another, and for the first time since everything happened, I didn't feel like I needed to explain anything. Not to them, not to anyone, not even to myself, because there was nothing left to prove. The money, the housey, the documents. None of it felt like the real thing. Not anymore. What he left me wasn't something you could count. It wasn't something you could argue over. It was something quieter, stronger, clear. He saw me. That was it. That was the difference. He saw me when no one else did, and he chose me because of it. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of truth. And that truth didn't need to be defended. It didn't need to be explained. It just existed. The swing moved slightly again. The same soft creak. I let it settle, didn't stop it, didn't push it. Just let it move. The way things do when they're not forced. The way things do when they're finally right. I looked out across the yard one more time, then closed my eyes for a second. Not to escape, not to forget, just to hold the moment, exactly as it was. My name is Andrea Townsend, I'm 27 years old, and what my grandfather left me was never just money. It was something much simpler, much harder to lose. The right to live my life, without waiting for anyone to approve it. And for the first time, that felt like enough.